These books will make you insufferable. Are the sunglasses also doing that? Let's talk about some books that once you read them, there's no going back. You are going to be the person, when you walk into a room, people are going to roll their eyes. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It kind of is what you do with that knowledge, I suppose. For example, I've already positioned myself as the unk that whenever I walk into a family gathering, there's going to be a little lecture when everyone's sitting around. I'm not 30 yet, so I've really set myself up for failure in terms of aging, but you know, these books might be helping you do that, and frankly, being insufferable in this day and age might be a good thing because, God, have you seen what's happening in this world? Have you? Have you? It's not good, mate. It is not good. We are going to be starting off strong with Edward Said's Culture and Imperialism, and also maybe we'll throw an Orientalism in there as well as a 2-for-1 whammy, baby. These books are basically ones that are telling you how our minds are still colonized, especially here in the West, and also how our perceptions are basically shaped by our colonial history and the ongoing things we are doing in terms of colonialism and using that to, well, imperialism, I suppose, and using that to shape our culture. I mean, look, let's talk about what's happening in the world. We have right now basically non-stop wars in West Asia, and in part of that is because culturally, here in the West, I mean particularly the United States, the culture has been inundated with basically these ideas of the United States has to go and bring liberation and positivity and peace to West Asia. The people in West Asia hate us, so we're going to go help them, or at least their leaders hate us, and then we need to go and liberate them from their bad, evil dictators. And you know what, in the 50s to 90s, it was the Soviet Union. Oh, we have to go and defeat the Soviet Union, and communism is evil. The movies, the books, the TV shows. United States went so far as doing McCarthyism in every single aspect of their life. Basically, if you were even suspected of being a communist, you are not having a job in any form of job ever, frankly. And that's, you know, kind of what cultural imperialism is all about. It is talking about how cultures are shaped by and do shape the imperialist project and also the people's thoughts of the imperialist project. Said even talks about the likes of Rudyard Kipling, how in his writings, especially his early ones, were basically making it sound like colonialism was great, how, you know, the British were going around and civilizing the uncivilized. He even talks about how, I always get it confused, I don't know if it's one of the Brontes or one of the other sisters who wrote, basically in his books, they normalize empire so much that it is seen as a positive by the general people, whether wittingly or unwittingly, because of the culture, they've normalized it. So for example, if you read any classical book that was written during the colonial era, particularly the Victorian era, I suppose, you always have characters basically being like, and then I went off to the colonies and I made my life great and here I am. An example to me is Magwitch. David Copperfield, I believe, also happened. Charles Dickens, I suppose. Colonialism is seen as a way to benefit yourself, not to be a burden to the empire, for you to really help your empire out by making yourself better, by being a colonizer. And it's just very normalized in the culture. And I think knowing that and being able to just be like, I know all of this. No, not like that. That came across as very smug. But, you know, knowing that really helps frame your mindset when it comes to viewing things that are particularly seen in our media, and especially given that we have a 24/7 non-stop news cycle. It's very important to kind of know these things. Orientalism also, I suppose, I guess magnus opum, it particularly is about how the West views and kind of looks down upon Asia and Africa in particular. I can't remember if we talked about South America, but it's particularly Asia and Africa, and kind of how the views of the West shape our relationship, or the West's relationship, with those places, whether it be seeing people from the Orient as, you know, men as more effeminate, as if that's a bad thing, seeing that people from the Orient maybe were not civilized enough and they needed to be civilized, things like that. And that's still stuff that is perpetuated today. You know, if you look at passport bros, people who are like, well, their perception of women in particular places like Southeast Asia is that they are meek and submissive and perfect to be there. Oh, I don't even know what kind of word I want to say there. You know, and that's why they go to Southeast Asia. And oftentimes these people in Southeast Asia, they aren't meek and submissive, but there are also some who are in dire straits who may have to play into that role because they need to get out of those dire straits, and those dire straits all come back from the legacy of colonialism. It is all perpetuated, it is all interlinked. Next up I want to talk to you about Naomi Klein's The Shock Doctrine. This book is kind of one where if you're just generally like in maybe political spaces, particularly left-wing ones, you'll hear people being like, wow, that's the shock doctrine in play, that's the shock doctrine in play. And this one is a little bit more than the Edward Said one, where like you might be a little bit infuriating as well. But it's kind of like, yeah, wait, Naomi's pretty spot on for a lot of it. The shock doctrine is basically, I feel like it's more than one thing is spoken about in it, but people mostly concentrate on the actual shock doctrine part, which was a policy that the United States and its allies implemented globally and also at home, where they will either manufacture a disaster, or when a disaster takes place, they will basically shock the system. It's a shock to the system, and they will implement these really just horrible, terrible policies for the people, but which will benefit them materially. So if you look at, Hurricane Katrina was a big example in the book. Hurricane Katrina happens, and basically the neoliberal, I don't know if it's the Chicago school, I'm not 100% sure, but it's a neoliberal school of thought. They're like, we're going to set up charter schools. So then the schools are all privatized, basically privatized. They are going to be there to shape the people in Florida and the young generation exactly how they want them to be shaped. The public schools aren't going to get the funding will go to the charter schools. Also, I believe some charter schools you have to pay for as well, so they're going to make even more money. The quality of education will not be that high, but because there's no other options, because they've come in and started all of these charter schools and the public schools don't have the money for it, now they're going to be shaping people going forward in Florida how they want them to be shaped. Another example would be probably the Iraq War, where the whole purpose of the Iraq War was you go in, you shock the system, you remove the government, and then you try and mold Iraq into the way you want it to be, throwing contracts at US companies, particularly mineral, oil, and military companies, to try and basically mold the system into a way that benefits them. Didn't work in Iraq because they were like, we underestimated the amount of people who wouldn't be happy that we overthrew their government. Who would have thought? Same thing in Afghanistan. They failed to do it, and that is why the Taliban are back in charge in the Afghanistan, when the United States were already the ones that helped create and fund and arm and train the Taliban in the 80s. So, you know, and another example, I think they talk about Pinochet, who was the dictator in Chile. He basically, communist government, or left-wing socialist government in Chile, United States goes in, overthrows them, kicks them out, installs Pinochet. Pinochet is a mass murderer. He sells off basically everything to the United States, basically gives the United States free reign over Chile, rules as a dictator, and all it does is benefit the United States and the ultra-wealthy and the neoliberals in the United States. That is the most part of the shock doctrine, but there are other things. I think she also goes into the more individual parts of the shock doctrine, talking about particularly like CIA torture techniques that literally shock people into kind of being willing to work with the CIA, or at least that was the purpose of it, as well as the torture, to try and like shock the system to get people into working for or giving information to the United States. It included some just like horrendous stuff that the United States funded, like extreme deprivation. Basically, they gave this one, I hesitate to call him a scientist, but they gave this one scientist basically unlimited money to experiment on people to see if he could basically rebuild their psyche as humans. He wanted to completely destroy them, get rid of like every aspect of them, and remake them into the person they want, to give them the information they want, to be loyal to them. Particularly, this was meant to be used on KGB agents in the Soviet Union, but it was like extreme deprivation, no talking to people, no speaking, no outdoors, no sunlight. Food was delivered basically through hatches where you couldn't see people for days and days, months on end, and it didn't, you know, remold the people, it just broke them. It broke them. There was also like the extreme sensory deprivation chambers, locking people into these boxes where there was nothing apart from maybe if they wanted to test out like the torture technique for sound, they would just play very, very loud sounds as people were locked very tightly in these boxes, including the sound of babies crying. God, it's disgusting, the kind of things that the CIA funded, still probably do fund. This book, I mean, the thing that will make you like a bit infuriating is when you just say, oh yeah, that's a shock doctrine. If you just say it all the time without actually going into explaining what it is, yeah, that's kind of it. That's kind of where people will be infuriated by you. But, you know, it's one of those ones where you read it, it's like, oh, I see this everywhere. And you know what? Obviously, you know, it's not going to be a one-to-one thing. It's not going to be 100% correct, but you will see circumstances at least similar to the shock doctrine being played out right now. Quickfire, obviously you're going to have to read Marx, gang. I'm sorry, you're just going to have to. And then, you know, people on the internet are going to say, you're chronically online. Like, no, I'm chronically on Hegel, oh God, I can't. Wait, okay, rewind. People are going to say, you're chronically online. No, I'm chronically on these Hegel, the fuck? What do I say? Rewind. People will say, you're chronically online. No, I'm chronically on this Marx. And I'm not talking about Groucho. Damn. Get fucked. And finally, we're going to be actually talking about some fiction books. This is going to be like a pairing. You're going to read Murakami, ew, I know, jump scare, and basically any one of the following 4 authors. We're going to be saying Haruki Murakami, Banana Yoshimoto, Sayaka Murata, or Han Kang. Basically, you're going to read Murakami, you're going to be like, what the fuck is this? Then you're going to read a book by one of those 4 women, you'll be like, oh, Murakami is like trying to say something and he's shit at saying it, but these 4 women say very similar things to him, and he's not, and they're not like perverts who like little girls. And from then on, you'll just be like a proselytizer of anti-Murakamiism. Because, by God, I'm seeing people who are like, oh my God, I love Haruki Murakami. He's such a great author. The way he talks about things is so good. I don't know why I'm doing a Valley Girl accent. It's just my go-to when I go to the United States. I know that might be offensive. Let me change it up. By God, man, I think you should read, why was I going to say Groucho Marx? You should read Haruki Murakami. I love the way he writes about little girls and he pervs on them in his books. My brother, are you okay? And look, him just looking. I've got like a playlist of reasons I hate Haruki Murakami. But come on, dude, you write all these books. All of them have the exact same protagonist. All of them follow the exact same beats. All of them have your protagonists leering particularly on young teenage girls, and then kind of very clearly hates women, but also really likes little girls, and then goes on, discovers that he's actually a piece of shit, and then moves on with his life being like, yeah, I am a piece of shit, but maybe I'm a different piece of shit. But then instead you have the likes of Murakami, who is very happy to explore like kind of sexual desire and how that can shape you, and how, you know, what are the reasons behind these desires, and it might not be exactly the best reasons behind why you've led to it, but it's an acceptance of yourself or trying to change yourself. You might have Sayaka Murata, who is really willing to kind of go deep into the effects of trauma on the psyche. You've got Han Kang, who very similarly kind of talks about trauma, but also talks about kind of the feelings of difference and outcastness and loneliness you might be feeling due to these things, but also addressing, you know, larger structural issues in some of her books like Human Acts. Or you can go to Banana Yoshimoto, who also does very much this sort of almost the surrealism that Murakami is trying to do, like the magical realism. I mean, Haruki Murakami also does that, but, you know, Banana Yoshimoto is kind of like, let me try that, and but actually writes it in a way that is very human and understanding of people, and isn't like, it doesn't feel like hateful towards groups. Like, it kind of feels like Murakami hates women in all of his books. And God, like, being 18 years old reading those books, I'm glad I didn't turn out to be a real piece of shit. Oh my God. But all, you know, you're going to be insufferable because whenever someone brings up a goddamn Murakami book, you're going to be like, by the way, fuck that guy. Why don't you read one of these other authors? And you know what? They're better books. You know, I can read a 150-page Banana Yoshimoto book and get so much more out of it than a 600-page Murakami book where he simultaneously hates women but also thinks about his like incestuous relationship and also his desire to be with like a 16-year-old girl. Stick to running and, you know, running a jazz bar, bro. Do that instead. God. Ugh. Didn't expect to get so angry. So those are some books, or at least suggestions, to make you somewhat insufferable. Again, it's not a bad thing, especially in the times we're living in, where I think people very much accept what is being said to them and will not challenge it, because obviously, you know, like Marx said, people basically get disassociated or feel like they just can't put up with participating in, you know, politics in their lives. You know, it's an actual problem, and it's not necessarily people's fault for that. It is the structure with which we live in. It is grinding us down. But, you know, you gotta try to at least be a little bit insufferable, especially in the world we live in, because it is the insufferable people that are going to help move things forward, and you can bring everyone along with you. And then if we're all insufferable, is anyone insufferable? Are you just sufferable? Don't think that's a word. It might be. But let me know in the comments down below if you agree with me, if you think I am just a madman who clearly has a vendetta against Haruki Murakami that will never ever go away, I promise. Let me know in the comments down below. I want to say a special thank you to my members. Members get access to bonus videos. They get the movie club, the book club. They get even more videos. Other than that, they get to help shape and get involved with the channel, you know, art, thumbnails, ideas, bagetta, etc, etc. They get involved in that. So you can join from as little as £1 a month if you would like. You can do that by hitting join down below or on my channel. Also, I'm just gonna, if you want to help a brother out on a one-off, you can go to my Ko-fi. You can make a one-off donation there if you want. Listen, I need to fund my book buying habit somewhere, right? So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you to the members once again. And hey, I hope you read a great book today. I am